Hey folks, this is Mike with The Quality Sportsman. Today we're talking about rifle scopes. I am going to do my best in 10 minutes to tell you how you can select the right rifle scope for your rifle, especially now that we're in the holiday season where everybody's running a ton of deals. So let's go ahead and get right to it.
Nice! There we go! Yes!
Before we talk about these scopes, I ask that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That helps me a ton. Hit that like button as well if you enjoyed this video. Thanks. All right, folks. Well, first I want to talk through some of the specifications of a rifle scope. In my hand here, I have an Arkin EP8 LPVO. This stands for Low Power Variable Optic. Also have an Athlon Cronus. This is a 4.5 to 29 by 56 rifle scope. So this is a pretty beefy rifle scope for more long-range precision shooting. What does any of that mean? 1 to 8, 4.5 to 29. What does that mean? So the first thing that you're going to look at when you're looking at a rifle scope is the magnification range. Variable power optics have a magnification ring right here where you can change the zoom of your optic, which increases or decreases the objective size that you're seeing through the scope. So the first number in a scope's, specification or nomenclature, whatever you want to call it, in the case of this Athlon 4.5 to 29, that means the lowest power you can go is 4.5 power and the highest range is 29 power. So that's pretty simple. Now let's talk about the last number. So this is a 4.5 to 29 by 56. 56 millimeters is the size of this objective lens. The objective lens is what lets in light, collects light into the scope and transmits that down the tube. Another important specification of rifle scopes that you should know about is the main tube size. Throughout the middle here is the main tube, and this beefier long-range scope is a 34 millimeter main tube. This tactical scope is actually a 34 millimeter main tube as well. And we can see some thinner, more sleek, lightweight designs, like for, eastern whitetail hunting, this would be a 1-inch tube. So 1 inch, 30 millimeter, 34 millimeter tubes are all very common sizes now. Generally speaking, the higher in the tube size that you're going to be paying more money. The bigger the tube, the more adjustment range you have in your scope as well. So for example, although this is not a scope that you can dial up and down your elevation, we'll talk about what that means in a little bit. With this being a 1-inch tube, if you could dial, there's not much room for that reticle to move up and down while you're dialing. Like you can see here, this is called a turret, as you can dial up and down your elevation to compensate for the drop in your bullet as you get further and further down range. Bigger scopes with bigger tubes have more adjustment range for dialing, which is why longer range shooting, you're going to see much bigger tubes like this. One of the most important features of the scope is the reticle. So in this Athlon scope that I'm holding right here, this is a mil-dot reticle, which means it has milliradian as the measurement unit of the reticle itself. Contrast that with this lighter Vortex hunting scope. This is in MOA, or minute of angle. They're both angular measurements, MOA and milliradian scopes. They're both functional for different purposes and either can work. You will tend to see that mil scopes are more popular in the precision shooting world or like really long range hunting. You'll also see a lot of scopes with BDC reticles. That stands for bullet drop compensation. They will have yardages listed in the reticle. So it says basically hold, straight on, that's your 0. Here's for 2, 3, 4, 500 yards. Now I do caution you against a BDC reticle. You'll see those for a lot of tactical applications, and that's great if you're just trying to suppress enemy or get close enough. You can walk your rounds on target and maybe you're not even shooting that long range, so the difference doesn't matter. However, for hunting, that's going to be a bit of a challenge. You're going to have to do a little bit of extra work to make sure you know exactly where your bullet's hitting, because likely for your gun and your barrel and your bullet, it's not going to be exactly the same or match exactly up to that BDC reticle. So that's why personally for precision shooting, I go with scopes that have mil reticles where it simply tells you, it has hash marks for every 0.2 mils. I can use a ballistic calculator and know exactly where my bullet is going to go, and then I can either dial on the turret or just hold over in the reticle to know exactly where my bullet will hit. However, the downside is if you're just an occasional shooter, All of these different features that I'm talking about do cost extra. So you will notice the more features that your scope has, the more it will cost, and that is a downside. One more thing you need to consider is whether you need a first focal plane or second focal plane rifle scope. Now, a first focal plane rifle scope means as you zoom in and out on the magnification, the reticle itself will get, bigger or smaller depending on how you're zooming. What that means is that the holds or the subtensions in the reticle are relevant at any magnification. Contrast that with a second focal plane rifle scope, which are, generally tend to cost less. That reticle will stay the same size when you zoom in and out on your magnification range. And those subtensions on that reticle, that is only going to be relevant usually at the max magnification for that scope, which can be a challenge if you're hunting. Be mindful of that. I tend to buy first focal plane everything because I'm used to it and I'm willing to spend a little bit more money. However, some folks might be used to that second focal plane rifle scope. That was more common for hunting back in the day. And so just keep that in mind. I recommend you jump into the world of FFP, first focal plane scopes, and never go back. But just understand if you do go with a second focal plane scope, that's not bad, but those holds are only going to be relevant at the max magnification range. So now that we talked about the different features and specifications of scopes, what should you be looking for? Well, it really depends on what you're going to do and what kind of rifle you're going to put it on. So for example, on an AR-15, I have an LPVO. This is a Vortex Razor Gen 3, very high-end scope, my favorite all around. If I had to only pick one, this would be it. And I can dial with it. So this is a tactical shooting, and I can also stretch this out to 600 or 700 yards long range. But it is also lightweight because I'm doing competitions where I'm running around and have to do quick shooting. So that's a consideration. Looking for the tactical application piece, I really recommend looking for something that's labeled as an LPVO. Generally speaking, it won't have a belled objective lens like this. It will have a straight objective lens, and that's fine. This gives you a really slim profile and lighter weight for the top of your AR-15. Now, getting into the hunting rifle realm really depends on where you're hunting and what type of rifle it is. Here in the southeast, but I've also done big western hunts as well. So let's start southeast whitetail. Let's just say here is a 4-16 scope. This is even probably a little bit bigger than you would need on the magnification. You could even go just a simple 3 to 9 power scope. They're going to be a lot lighter weight and easier to haul around in the woods. Climbing up into a tree stand, you don't need, a huge scope getting caught on things, or walking through the woods. The lighter, the better. So really in that, 3 to 9 or 4 to 16 power range for eastern whitetail, I mean, realistically, you could get away with even less, but they're very popular. You can find very good deals on, 3 to 9 or 4 to 16 power scopes that either have, minute of angle bullet drop reticles in them, 1-inch tubes, and you'll be able to find a nice set of rings or mount for that type of scope, and keep a nice lightweight rifle to carry around. Now looking towards western hunts, this is actually an older scope called the Vortex HST. That stands for hunting, shooting, tactical, kind of a hybrid design here. And I actually shot a mule deer back in Idaho maybe 4 or 5 years ago with this rifle scope at 450 yards with a 300 Win Mag. This is a nice mix of being able to reach out really long range, but also still staying in the mid-range. You can see this is only a 44 millimeter objective lens, not as big as that 56 that I showed you earlier. So this is a nice kind of like mid-range and really good style of scope for your western hunts where you may be stretching out further, but also you're hiking and packing through the woods, so you don't want to be carrying tons of extra weight. So finding something in the middle ground, 4 to 16 power with a 40, 44 objective lens is really going to be a great spot to be for your western hunters. Okay, and in my last category, we're going to talk about precision or long range rifle shooters, whether it's just for fun or for competition purposes. You're going to want to go with something with a 34 millimeter tube, mil reticle, the ability to dial. I just did a video last week on an Arkin EP5 Gen 2 scope that is a 7 to 35 power scope. And although I was shooting 700 yards with 35 power, I showed that you can easily shoot 700 yards with 7 power. So you don't need to go crazy on the magnification. In fact, when I'm shooting long range shooting matches with this scope, I never put it up to 29 power. I only do that if I'm zeroing and I want to just be lazy and not get my spotting scope out, and I can zoom in and see my bullet holes at 100 yards, make my adjustments, and then go shoot the competition. The further zoomed in you are, the harder it is to transition from target to target. You don't want to overdo it. So just to consider, you can probably save some money and not go with the biggest, beefiest scope. For me, most, tactical long range and bolt action, PRS long range matches, this 4.5 to 29 is perfect. You are going to need a cantilever mount if you're mounting this on an AR-15. Let me show you why. If you didn't, two things would happen. This would be mounted back and you have a shorter stock, generally speaking, on an AR-15, and it would be really hard to grab the charging handle. Of course, you can mitigate that with large frame charging handles here. But the other thing is you wouldn't be able to get it forward enough without mounting onto, oops, the red dot's kind of in the way there, without mounting onto the handguard rail itself. Guys, you cannot mount your scopes on the handguard rail. They have to be on the rail that is machined onto the receiver. So you have to get this cantilever mount mainly for that reason, so that it can mount on the receiver, the upper receiver of the AR-15, and still fit on the front of the scope without being so far back that you can barely shoot it. When you're shooting a bolt gun, you're likely just going to be able to go with straight up rings like this. All you need to think about is the height of the rings. You'll have to look at the manufacturer specifications, and it'll tell you, low, medium, high, extra high, depending on how big that objective lens on the scope is and how high off of the top of your receiver you need to get it. So I know that was a really quick video, but I just wanted to kind of run through all the different specifications so you know what you're reading when you look at a rifle scope. You understand the different reticles, the difference between mil and MOA, and whether you just need simple hash, mil or MOA hash marks, or you need a bullet drop compensator reticle. And then thinking through, how much you want to spend, how big you want the scope to be, the rings, and how to mount it on the rifle. If you think I missed something, I know there's a lot of experienced shooters that come across these videos. Please go ahead and drop it down below. I'd be curious to see what else you would help tell our beginners when they're selecting a new rifle scope. Go out there, get you some deals, and I hope you have a good time shopping and outfitting your next hunting and shooting rig. And we'll see you next time on The Quality Sportsman. Take care.